Back in the early 1980s, after the fall of Vietnam in 1975, a huge number of people escaped from Vietnam, or at least from South Vietnam. Many boat people found themselves at Pulau Bidong, off the Malaysian coast. Over the 16 years that Pulau Bidong existed, 250,000 people were processed through that island, and a number of the people from there, young boys, ended up in Australia, and over a period of time, 30 boys came to live in the Hy-vong community, which was in Borradale, and the boys went to Chevalier College, a work of the Missionaries of the Sacred Heart. There are a lot of stories that could be told of that time, and I'd like to put some segments together, but now with what's happening with the influx of refugees at the moment, and with people coming from a Muslim background in the Middle East, there are some lessons out of that period that could help today. One of the things that happened at the school is most people were welcoming and helpful, and the boys say, particularly the girls, with their compassion. But there was a small group of boys in the senior years that resented the Vietnamese being there, and of course came up with the racial taunts of slopes and slanty eyes and all the rest of it, and really niggled away at the boys. The boys would talk amongst themselves, and the older boys would counsel, you know, why worry about them? We've been through a war with all we've seen and know. They're not worth worrying about. Leave it be. But it did build up, and of course all boys' tolerance is not the same and not as good. And on one particular occasion, half a dozen of the Vietnamese boys had had enough, and they went after the 4 or 5 boys that were giving them trouble. The Australian boys escaped to the staff room, but in the melee, some Vietnamese boys picked up things. As one Vietnamese boy said, "We're such little people, it helped me to be a bit taller." And of course it really shook the college up. But after that, we moved to help the situation by putting on Friday nights at the Hy-vong community, at the home, where we invited Australians to a dinner that night, and children from the college, students, and had a meal and had songs. One of the boys was particularly good with the guitar, excellent actually, and the boys sang their Australian hymns, but in Vietnamese, and it was a really good night of collaboration and great nights. And after that, that developed into sporting games with Chevalier College, and the integration moved to settle things down and do more than that. It turned the place into a more welcoming place. I think there's a lot we can learn. One of the things that disappointed me at that time is a portion of the community that couldn't just pause for a while and move from some sense of unease or even fear of the influx to imagining what it was like to be a refugee. I witnessed it firsthand as I ran the place. Boys that couldn't sleep at night because of their dreams. Some yelling in their sleep. Boys coming home from school so tired, to get a communication from elsewhere that reminded them of their duty to try and help relatives left behind. The feelings of guilt, irrational as it was. Boys in the study trying to learn their English words for their homework and sitting up till late and late and late at night and having to be told, forced to go to bed, only to find them in the morning up at first light trying to finish their homework. Boys that worried about, in their escape, they'd been separated from relatives, brothers, sisters, and wanted help from me to try to find where they'd ended up. And then the hours and hours and hours of negotiations and connections with the Red Cross to try to track down a positive response, often to no avail and sometimes to very terrible news. I could talk more about this, but the refugees of today are no different of that. The boys weren't trying to create their old home from where they'd come in a new place. They were looking for safety, to make meaning for their life and to help those that they loved. What I found was common to all the boys over many years as a principal of schools, no matter where they come from. Our common humanity says that we want very basic things. We want to love and to be loved. We want to make meaning of our lives. And we need a modicum of security. That's basic to all of us. And to deny any of those things is to be unjust, especially when we've got the capacity to assist those about us to have those things.